This is Dabu 7. If there's one thing I've tried to get people ready for, it is a lights out situation, and I've done so for quite a long time. A lights out situation can happen in many different ways. The sun can cause it to happen. Your government can cause it to happen. Many different things can go into motion. And we've talked about hackers. Regardless of what government is actually behind it, they could bring the grid to a halt and put us in the dark. And above all of these, the scariest has always been the EMP. They can take out the full continent, fry everything, leaving everyone in the dark. Now there's talk of another way that this is going to come about. And if we don't change things quickly, they say that this is going to happen by like 2025 and especially by 2030, when they want all of America to be switching over to these EVs, but our grid cannot handle it. Our grid is the most unique and complex ever built in the world. It is a huge network of transmission lines, power plants, and distribution centers. And there's three major grids: the Eastern Grid, the Western Grid, and the ERCOT Grid, otherwise known as the Texas Grid. Of the three, the Eastern Grid is the largest. Although these three grids can operate independently, they're also connected. And a failed grid here means that there's no power for tens of millions of people for prolonged periods of time, where people are put in the dark. And just imagine if this happens in an area like Los Angeles or New York, big cities, for a long time. It's going to happen here at this rate, as they're warning, and they start to break down some numbers here. They talk about all the energy that is being consumed, and that by 2025, the United States will have more than 20 million EVs on the road. By 2030, they're saying that more than half of the car sales will be electric. This strain will cripple the power grid, they say. Just to catch up with what the current administration wants us to do, there's some insane loops and hoops that they got to jump through here to make this happen. Even if the United States is able to do this, they're saying there's not going to be enough energy to support all of this. They're going to say that by 2025, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers, the inability of the United States to maintain its many power lines will cost the country nearly $130 billion, to be exact. So, for them to get to this point, across the United States, there are 21 EVs per public charging port. By 2030, to keep up with the EV purchasing trend and what's being forced on the people, the United
Hey, Shalom Malkim, Shalom. First thing and foremost, I want to give all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, Ba'ashim Habakkuk. I'd like to give double honors to the elders and the apostles of the great millstone. Peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect. Those in the gospel, bro, lifting up the standard of Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, wherever it may be. This is just a quick lesson through the spirit. It says a surprising threat to the U.S. power grid could plunge the country into darkness. We've been hearing about EMP strikes, particular grid outages, grid sabotages for quite some time now. Plunging the world, or plunging the Western hemisphere, or as we know as America, into utter darkness and chaos and degradation. Okay? In an event that this will happen, because the scriptures do go into this particular event. All right, when you go into the book of Exodus, the 10th chapter, which we'll get that. All hell break loose, man. Okay, when the grid shuts down. Okay, so I'm thinking, just speaking as a man, the perfect time will be able to implement or to be able to voice this particular attack on this country will be in the wintertime, because that's when people need the most energy, so to speak, to continue to fuel their homes, their place of business, their vehicles. You know, the heat and the gas in the winter is very, very essential. Okay, because, you know, if you live in the Midwest or on the far east coast of America, as you know, the temperatures become very, very frigid in the wintertime, okay? Sometimes unbearable, as certain states can see up into several feet of snow. So if Esau really wanted to be the devil that the Bible talks about, he can go ahead and make this happen, because his whole thing is ultimately making people suffer. Okay? So it says the importance of a strong power grid cannot be emphasized enough, which we know America's power grid isn't strong by far. I believe right along with the infrastructure, they got what, like a D or C rating, if I'm not mistaken, because I believe the American infrastructure got like a D, like a class D rating, which is very poor. Okay, like the bridges, they're corroded, the streets are all destroyed. This is why you have crews working after hours to do what they call layovers on the roads, because the roads are totally disintegrating. Okay, but even what they're laying over with, it's not even actual concrete, it's asphalt, which breaks down in the wintertime, and also in extreme heat, the asphalt, it kind of boils and it buckles. Okay, and the amount of traffic that you have on these roads, it disintegrates a lot faster at an accelerated rate. Okay, so it says, often when the grid falls, the results are terrifying. It says of all the major power grids in the world, the United States is the more vulnerable to attack. Right? Because everything is predicated to a particular grid. I mean, everything is locked on a grid, from your homes to your businesses to your different infrastructures, your sanitation plants. All these things are controlled by the grid. If they go down and one shuts down, then it's like a domino effect and it trickles on down. Okay? But it says the state-sponsored hackers from the likes of Iran, Russia, and unsurprisingly China pose a real threat to the United States electrical transmission lines. But however, another far less obvious threat to the grid are electric vehicles, which is EVs. But it says the Biden administration is desperate to consign the internal combustion engine to the doomsday of history, which we was actually going into that account, that they want to phase out all gas vehicles by 2030. Okay? So it says, in this radical shift to embrace a new zero-emission world, Americans are being told to embrace EVs. Such as an embrace, however, requires stellar power grid, the very thing that the United States lacks. Okay? And their thing is because, for the simple fact, America, they want to capitalize on everything. Esau likes to capitalize. So if he can make as much money and generate as much wealth as he can by overloading this infrastructure, he's going to do that no matter the consequences, man. Because that's how this devil operates. Okay? He's about greed and covetousness. Okay? He don't think for the long term. What can I do if I decide to do this? What kind of effects would it cause for the long term? And instead, he's only with making people's lives miserable and oppressing people and stealing from them. And that's what it's all about. Because it says, just to be clear, the U.S. power grid or electric grid involves a huge network of transmission lines, power plants, and distribution centers. It says the United States have three major grids, the Eastern grid and the Western grid, and the ERCOT grid, otherwise known as the Texas grid, which they have their own power pretty much. Texas is pretty much self-sufficient in that. And it says of the three, the Eastern grid is the largest. But although the three grids can operate independently, they're also connected. So a failed power grid or grid means no power for tens of millions of citizens in a prolonged periods of darkness. Okay? And the scriptures goes into the 3 days of darkness, when all chaos and anarchy breaks out on the streets. Makes sense that when all hell break loose, Esau cuts the power, because at the same time, when you have a global purge going on, hey, Esau Edom is going to come in and extract those who he deem a threat to his new world order. Right? So with that being said, it says, imagine a power grid failure in the likes of Los Angeles or New York, and you can add Chicago in there. But it says the two cities are already riddled with crime. Grid failures would make things many times worse, right? Because, hey, in a time of hell breaking loose, people are going to function off anarchy, man. Okay? And they're going to do rape, murder, death, extortion, military invasion. All types of wickedness is going to come to fruition. And this is what we're warning you people, man, that these things are likely to happen any day now. Okay, forget that 2030 shit. Esau, through the spirit, ain't got that long, man. So he got to make his move now, according to Revelation 12 and 12. But it says in 2018, the Department of Homeland Security announced that Russian hackers had hijacked the control rooms of various electric utilities. So this caused the hackers to disrupt power flows and cause blackouts. But rather alarmingly, the DHS conceded that the attacks have been occurring since 2016, the same year as the Russians started attacking Ukraine's grid. But although the Russians have strenuously denied the attack, such denials appear to conflict with reality, as tensions from Russia and China, Russia and the United States escalate tensions. between China and other hacker-friendly countries intensifies expect more disruption of the grid. So basically, you can expect more and more blackouts, man, in the coming months. Okay, because they're talking about a dark winter. Okay, when people can't sustain the power that they need in order to keep things running for themselves and their families. So it's getting ready to go down, man. Okay, so this is the book of Matthew 24:19. It says, "Woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days." And this is actually talking about you other nations, man, and you 2/3 of our people. Now, if you a brother that's of the elect, Lord is dealing with you, you end up having a kid, then you know it is what it is. But overall, it's not wise for any brother to just be deliberately bringing out babies when you can avoid it. But if it happens, it happens. You know, you got to take care of your responsibility. We're not against it. But it says, "For then should be great tribulation, such it was not since the beginning of the world." Oh, Salakia, it says, "But pray ye that your flight be not in winter, neither on a Sabbath day." Why? Because, hey, you got to flee in the winter. No power. Okay, you have no type of energy to sustain yourself. Things are shut down. That's going to be pretty much a walking death sentence, man. Because eventually you're just going to die from hypothermia, which is basically your organs freeze to death. You know, you're going to die. And it says neither on a Sabbath day, because we know the Sabbath day is a day of rest. But it says, "For then should be great tribulation, such it was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor no ever shall be." Meaning that we're coming into the time of human suffering beyond imagination, man. When the death toll is going to easily be in the millions by far. Okay, especially when Esau rolls out this martial law and this chip. There's literally people that's going to be dying on the spot, man. Because you're going to have inner conflicts among civilians or citizens. And you're going to have military conflict. You're going to have different militaries that's invading the United States. Because remember, the scriptures say, "I will remove far from you the northern army." So eventually, a foreign army, as the UN, will have to replace and police the streets of America. Which they're not going to play with you jakes, man. Okay, they're not going to play with none of you people, because they have a thing, shoot to kill, shoot on sight. Because when you're a mercenary for hire, you're under a paid contract to do exactly what the people that's paying you to do. So you're not paid to have sympathy on people. Okay, you're not paid to spare people's emotions and their children. You coming over here to kill and put things in order, to establish order out of chaos. And the grid shutdown will bring nothing but that, order out of chaos, man. Okay, it says here, "Except those days should be short, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days were shortened." Why? Because, hey, if these days was not cut short, then everybody would die. Okay, because nobody would be able to survive a nuclear war or massive pestilence or so-called global warming and changes in the weather and all these diseases and so forth. Nobody would survive that, man. Salakia, clear my throat. But nobody would survive that, because the death would be innumerable. And when you have dead carcasses, that ignites other diseases and pestilence, man. All right. But I got to go back to work, so I'm going to let this be my last precept. Lord's will you were edified. But this is the book of Exodus 10:21. It says, "And Yahweh said it to Moses, stretch out thy hand towards heaven, that there be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt." Okay, and how do you mean? What did he mean by feeling it? Meaning it was so dark to the point you could feel the heaviness of the night. Okay, and also the apparitions that's going to plague Babylon. Because remember, America is a mass graveyard for you Negro, Latino, and Native American. Okay, mainly the Gadites, because you had what they call the Trail of Tears under that devil that's on a $20 bill, Andrew Jackson. Over 99 million Israelites died from what they call the Trail of Tears from the coast of Florida up into the jetties of Nevada, Colorado, making our people walk totally barefooted in the thickest of the winter. And a lot of Israelites dropped dead from that, man. But here Jake is glorifying money. Okay, but nonetheless, hey, it says here, going back to that point, you have masses of apparitions and spirits that's floating around this place, man. Mainly familiar spirits, because when you die, your spirit go to the spirit world. But a familiar spirit is nothing more but an entity that takes on your likeness. Okay, which they say spirits are not at rest. Well, America is a big haunted house, man, because you have a lot of you have a lot of, I won't say seismic deals with the earth and, you know, particular shakings, but you have a lot of different ley lines. Like when you go into ley lines, like particular places on the earth that's more haunted than others, you have a lot of spiritual activity that's going on in America. Like a lot of times fires just ignite out the blue, you know, mass death, you know, sinkhole, all types of shit happens, man, that have no type of account for. Like it's this channel on YouTube called Frostmere. I watch it from time to time, but basically these apparitions are showing themselves. So in the midst of a blackout for several months, you better believe that the Most High is going to allow the fourth dimension to get loose. All right, but it says that Moses stretched forth his hand towards heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. And they saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days, but all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings, man, okay? Because we lived in a land of Goshen, okay? But this time, the 2/3, you're going to get plunged into this darkness. And the elect, and the light of the elect is going to be the Holy Spirit, man, okay? Guiding us through these days, because guess what? We're going to be caught up in this stuff too, but we're going to have the spirit of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai to help us navigate, man, okay? But anyway, I'm going to end it there, brothers. All praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. And with that, shalom and a ball, and shalom.